This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! Whoa, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on your radio after a busy weekend in sports, and it was a busy day today. Phillies went 3-0. They're back in action tonight. They got to face that guy, Jacob deGrom, but we'll get more into that with Frank Klose coming up live from the ballpark in about 20 minutes from now. I've worn this black Phillies hat the entire weekend, so my working theory is, if nothing else, the Phillies have a better chance to win if I wear this hat, if not, because baseball is all about superstition, if nothing else. So we'll get a preview about the Phillies coming up from Frank in about 20 minutes from now. Also, big breaking news happened just a couple hours ago. Mike Gill comes on for Football at 4, and bam, there's a trade that happened. Sam Darnold goes to the Panthers. That's right. Sam Darnold to the Panthers. And this is a big deal because this is going to change what happens for everyone in the draft. And let me explain why. First of all, it takes the Panthers out of the running for one of the quarterbacks. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is that now you could potentially see some guys get pushed down in the draft. The expectation going in all along was Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, one of the other three go 3. And then whoever doesn't go at 3 will get no farther than 8. That was the working assumption. Because the Panthers were there. And the Panthers, whether it's right or not, are just not 100% sold on the idea of Teddy Bridgewater. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. And I think there's an argument to be made both ways. You can make an argument for Teddy. You can make an argument against Teddy. Because Teddy has his limitations, okay? For and against it. All right, cool. But you look at what it does to the draft. Now you're going to see guys like Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones have a lot more uncertainty about their future. So how does this impact the Eagles? Number one, it impacts the Eagles because now at 12, you are in position to take phone calls. Because as quarterbacks start dropping, and they always are a guy dropping, it's not just going to be the wide receivers. It's not just going to be Penei Sewell potentially going down as far as 7 to 9 or 10. What if one of those quarterbacks shows up at 11 and 12? Now, if you're the Eagles, you can take those phone calls. You could take the phone calls from the New England Patriots. You could take those phone calls from the Washington football team. You could take those phone calls from maybe even the New Orleans Saints. I understand they have a lot of money invested right now in the Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, but not all that money they signed those guys is guaranteed money. It's very short-term contracts for both of them. So you have a bunch of teams who are behind the Eagles who could maybe trade up. I mean, come on. Do you even know? Okay, the average football fan doesn't know that Tom Brady's backup is Blaine Gabbert. Are you really that confident that the backup for Tom Brady should be Blaine Gabbert? Or should they draft a guy? Do they trade up for a guy that they really like? Maybe, maybe not. Or does the team trade up to 12 to maybe not get a quarterback? What if the Eagles know they can move back a spot or 2 or 3 and still get one of the corners or still get one of the wide receivers, and then a team trades up to get maybe an offensive lineman that maybe you're not focused on? So this trade impacts the draft on so many levels. Now, we have a comment on the Facebook. By the way, shout out to Jeff Bone and Pookie who's watching the show on YouTube. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter here on 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. On Facebook, we have a comment from Chris. Now, Chris asked a question that we talked about a little earlier on the Sports Bash. Chris says Joe Douglas received a good haul for Darnold. Hey, Chris, I disagree. I think Joe Douglas did a bad job. I think Howie Roseman did a better job at getting a haul for a damaged product in Carson Wentz than for an untapped potential product in Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, before he was drafted, was considered one of, if not the best draft prospect in that entire draft. The reason why Baker Mayfield went number one in that draft is because of the reality that the Browns fell in love with Baker Mayfield. That was the biggest reason. You go back to everything that happened around that draft. Sam Darnold was considered by the majority of analysts to be the best prospect in that draft. And you got a 6th-round pick, a 2nd and a 4th-round pick next year. I think that's a poor haul, honestly. I think it's a bad job by Douglas. You're telling me that's the best offer you can get? You know who gets picked in the 6th round? Jalen Mills and Jordan Mailata are late-round picks because they're developmental guys or they have off-the-field issues. You know who gets picked in the 6th round who's not named Tom Brady? Guys who are not sure things. Sam Darnold was never given an honest opportunity in New York. That dude walked into a no-win situation between changing up coordinators, changing up coaches, and then you finally get rid of Adam Gase, and it's like, we don't want the guy. We want the shiny new toy. We want the fresh car off the parking lot. Sam Darnold, like many quarterbacks who come into the NFL, do not walk into great situations because their teams drafting are so high in the draft. Very rarely are you high in the draft and you are still a good, stable situation. The 49ers traded up to the 3rd pick. The Chiefs traded up to get Patrick Mahomes. Those are very unique, rare situations. The majority of teams at the top of a draft are bad situations. Now Darnold is going from one of the most dysfunctional organizations in the NFL to Matt Rule, basically a stability among all stability in the NFL. I mean, that guy runs a solid program. Joe Brady, who is a very, very well thought of offensive mind. He's the guy who made Joe Burrow the 1st overall pick in the NFL draft. So Darnold is going to a great situation. Darnold is being taken from a team that doesn't know what they're doing, that had to overpay to get Joe Douglas. Don't forget, the reports were about Joe Douglas. They offered him an extra year on his contract to get him to take that job. So they're locked into Douglas because they were desperate to get him because they realized that after Mike Tannenbaum, who joins Mike Gill on the Sports Bash tomorrow at 2:30, left the organization because they were unhappy with the fact that him and Rex Ryan only got them to not 1, but 2 AFC championship games. They went through Idzik and McCagnon before they got to Douglas. And Douglas, all the best he can do is get a 6th-round pick this year? That's embarrassing. That's not a good haul for Darnold. That's an embarrassing haul. This guy was one of the top college prospects of the last 4 years, and the best you got was a 6th-round pick this year and then some okay picks in 2nd and 4th round next year. What you're basically saying is that Carson Wentz has more value as a damaged goods product than Sam Darnold. The Eagles got more for Carson Wentz than the Jets got for Sam Darnold. That 2nd-round pick next year can convey to a 1st-round pick. There's no conveying going on here. There's no chance for that 2nd or 4th-round pick to turn into something else. By the way, this is what Schefter tweeted earlier. That, quote, Carolina and the Jets have been talking for weeks. Panthers' compensation kept creeping up and up and up to where it came today. You're telling me that the Jets had to convince them to give them what they got? That's ridiculous. And by the way, in Joe Douglas's statement, it doesn't make the situation any better. Joe Douglas said, and I'll pop this up on the video screen for those of you watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Because this statement doesn't, if you're a Jets fan, or if you're a Howie hater / Joe Douglas lover, this statement doesn't make the situation any better. He says, I want to publicly acknowledge the commitment and dedication and professionalism Sam displayed while with the Jets. He is as tough-minded and talented a football player whose NFL story has not been written yet. Well, if he's so tough and so talented, why did you trade him? Douglas says this is a short and long-term best interest for both the Jets and Darnold. You basically put him in a better situation. You said, Sam, we're a dumpster fire. Why don't you go to Carolina? That's what this feels like. We're going to put you in a better situation than you've been in. I mean, all of you people who love Joe Douglas and hate Howie Roseman, Howie got more for Carson Wentz than Joe Douglas got for Sam Darnold. Carson Wentz was drafted 2 drafts before Darnold, so he's older, he costs more money than Darnold. I am not impressed with Joe Douglas. Mike Gill put the poll question up earlier today. We retweeted it at 973 ESPN. The poll question is really, really simple. I'm going to go check on these poll results right now. Wentz got you a 3rd-round pick this year. The Jets got you a 6th-round pick this year. The Eagles have a conditional 2nd-round pick, which become a 1st next year. The Jets are getting a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick next year. Who did better? I'm going to click on my vote right now, see what the poll result is. Oh, 85% say Roseman did a better job. That's funny. That's hilarious. All of a sudden, people think Howie is smarter than Joe Douglas, the football guy. All of a sudden, when you put the facts in front of him. Now, I'm not promising you Howie Roseman's going to get every one of those picks right, and I'm not promising you Joe Douglas is not going to get every one of those picks right. But what I can promise you is that on the surface, you have 2 quarterbacks. One was picked 2nd, one was picked 3rd. One guy, you could potentially walk away with 3 first-round picks next year, while the Jets are going to be trying to figure out what to do with a 2nd and 4th-round pick next year. And a 6th-round pick for a guy who was a 3rd overall pick in the draft? Are you kidding me? The Jets and Joe Douglas should be ashamed of themselves. This is an embarrassment. If you're going to trade Sam Darnold, and the best you could do is this, then either you are a horrible salesman, or you are a horrible negotiator, or you're just that dense. You know, Joe Douglas may be a football guy, but man, this is the first big mistake of his tenure. The only way this comes back to make Joe Douglas look good is if Sam Darnold blows up and implodes in Carolina, which I tend to believe he won't, because if Joe Douglas thinks he's tough-minded, he's a good kid, he's a hard worker, what do you think Carolina's going to do with him? And by the way, Carolina picked Sam Darnold over Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. What does that say about Sam Darnold? Meanwhile, all the Eagles have is a 3rd-round pick, a potential 1st-round pick next year in Jalen Hurts. The Jets are hoping that Zach Wilson works out. Good luck with that. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, live in the Matt Black Kia studios. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. We'll transition back to baseball coming up next, because the Phillies, they are 3-0. They swept the Braves. They did so 2 years ago. But still, this is different, because this year, they didn't allow many runs. The bullpens allowed none. Aaron Nola had the worst performance of the 3 starting pitchers of the weekend, and all he did was give up a 2-run home run at the end of his start. Frank Klose joins us live from the ballpark, coming up next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app is free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, where you can get all of your alerts. You want to get Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers alerts, just download the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Go to the alert section and click on everything you want. You want only Phillies and Eagles alerts? You want only Flyers alerts? You want Sixers and Eagles alerts? You want Phillies and high school sports alerts? You can customize your alerts right now with the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show. Just follow 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get more into the Philadelphia Phillies now. 3-0 to start the 2021 season. I don't think anybody really thought they would start that well for the year. But one man who has talked about the Phillies all spring long, it was at the ball game tonight. It is our own Frank Klose. Check out all of his work at 97.3 ESPN.com. His Phillies mailbag is tomorrow on the Sports Bash. But before Frank Klose can give his mailbag, he joins us now from the ballpark as the Phillies are back in action tonight against some guy named Jacob deGrom. You might have heard of him. Frank, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Josh?
Doing pretty good. So, you know what? The Phillies, I think a lot of people, they're pleasantly surprised that this team is 3-0. And I think the biggest surprise, Frank, is how well the pitching staff performed. I think most people felt like this could be a good pitching staff, but to play the way they did over the weekend, I think exceeded almost anybody's expectations.
Well, I'll tell you what. I did say this on Thursday when I was talking to Mike prior to opening day. You know, the top 3 starters the Phillies have can really hang with anybody. Even the Braves. The Braves, Max Fried is a tremendous young pitcher. Certainly, former Philly Charlie Morton has been a tremendous pitcher. Anderson, of course, is going to be this stud everybody expects someday. In fact, he's kind of emerging into that now. But when good pitching goes up against good pitching, it can kind of go either way. And the thing that really changed for the Phillies this opening series compared to last year was the bullpen. You expected Eflin to at least hang in there. You expected good stuff from Wheeler, although he was phenomenal. You expect good stuff from Aaron Nola. And then, last year, this Phillies bullpen probably would have blown 2 of the 3. I think that's fair to say, right? So, when you have some good pitching in the bullpen combined with those top 3, I think at the end of the day, they can hang with anybody. And if a team like the Phillies can get into a playoff spot, you see watching these first 3 games what a playoff series might look like. The top 3 pitchers of the Phillies going against the other guy's top 3 pitchers. It makes you feel good about that. But they got to get there first, of course.
Now, part of getting there is surviving the season. And for 162 games, I think one of the questions out there is, when we get to August and September, will the Phillies' top 3 guys, Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin, still be dealing? Because we still haven't seen Nola put up the numbers he puts in the first half of the season in the second half. We're still waiting on to see what Wheeler and Eflin can do in pressure situations. So is this team built to make it the full 162?
I think it's really fair to say that Aaron Nola's story has sort of been, he gets to September, he just can't hang, for lack of a better word. So I think this is a very key season for Aaron Nola. I'm okay with Zach Wheeler. I think Zach Wheeler will make it through the season. Zach Eflin, he usually seems to struggle a little bit mid-season, and then he kind of catches himself. And towards the end, he's actually been one of the more reliable starters. So I think this is going to come down to Aaron Nola. When the going gets tough, so to speak, will he step up? When the Phillies have an opportunity to get to the playoffs come September, and I tend to think they'll be hanging around come September, well, will he step up? Now, of course, there's always injury issues. The last couple of years, Jake Arrieta, as the veteran, he kind of fell apart down the stretch. He's not in the picture now. 4 and 5 or Chase Anderson and Matt Moore. Matt Moore's in the 4 position starting tonight. They have pretty good track records of being consistent throughout the seasons. I think that's why the Phillies got him. But the good news is should something happen to somebody along the way, and it happens to everybody, there's going to be a AAA season this year. They still have one of their top prospects in Adonis Medina at AAA. Spencer Howard will probably come up. He might not start. He might start. We'll see. They're trying to limit his innings, but he's still kind of in their back pocket and somebody that could come up and help along the way. And let's face it, last year, previous years, Vince Velasquez was always started, right? So he was always one of the guys they were counting on going into a season. This year, he's not that. He's still around. He could pitch a little bit down the stretch. You feel a lot better with him as a backup plan than somebody who is one of your go-to guys. So you got to like the depth that they have compared to last year.
Frank Klose joining us here on the Boardwalk on a Hotline, live from the ballpark here on 97.3 ESPN at Frank Klose. That's 2 Ks, K for Frank, K for Klose. Check out the Phillies mailbag. Will be tomorrow on the Sports Bash and over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Now, the other thing about the games of the weekend was, Frank, we didn't see explosion from the offense, but we saw timely hitting from the offense. How do we feel about the Phillies offense after 3 games? Because I feel like people felt, okay, we know Harper, we know Real Muto. Alec Bohm came up very big over the weekend. We know we're getting from Gregorius. Hoskins didn't play well. What do we feel about the batting lineup after 3 games?
The Phillies did face some tough pitching the last few days. I really want to underscore that the Atlanta Braves starting pitching is very, very, very good. In fact, that's why most people believe that the Atlanta Braves are the favorite in the National League East. I mean, just look around, all the different media outlets and what the predictions are for the NL East. Everybody seems to have the Braves there, and it's 2 reasons. It's the starting rotation and the really young hitters like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Christian Pache. And then you have, of course, Marcelo Zuna there as well, and Freddie Freeman, the veteran, on top of all that. So I don't put too much stock into the Phillies playing the way they did versus that really good Braves pitching. I think it's very encouraging that Alec Bohm came up big when he did. I think that shows he's got a lot of poise. I think it shows that he is somebody that he's coming to play ball. In my preseason prediction piece at 97.3 ESPN.com, I predicted that Alec Bohm would be an all-star this year. I really do think he's got that kind of talent. He's not frazzled by big game situations. And as you saw, he just sort of relaxed. And I know Mike was talking earlier at the Sports Bash. He hits the ball where it is. And when you got a young guy who's able to do that, and I think that sets you up for a lot of success going forward. So I wouldn't worry much about how they did against the tough Braves pitchers. They faced another tough one tonight in Jacob deGrom, but see how this plays out as they face perhaps some lesser pitchers, how they respond. This is a lineup that put forth 5.10 runs per game last year. That was 5th in Major League Baseball. So when you think about that, the Phillies bullpen really did cost them a lot of wins last year. But 5.10 runs a game should win you a lot of games. It should win them a lot of games this season, especially with those top 3. So I think this Phillies offense is going to be just fine. The only complaint I hear from people, and I think it's a little bit overstated, was the center field battle. But honestly, whoever won the center field battle was going to bat 8th, and I don't think that that's a worry. Just catch the ball in center field, and the Phillies will be in great shape.
Frank, I know that Alec Bohm is playing well now, but I'm a little jaded, Frank. I'm a little jaded by the past, because in the past it was supposed to be Rhys Hoskins was supposed to be the big bat. Remember the whole time? I remember you talking about this for years. In the minor leagues, it was Hoskin and Cousins, right? They were the big smashers at, what was it, AA? And Cousins never worked out. Kingery is supposed to be this guy. They messed up his swing. Now he's back down in the minor league section. What makes Alec Bohm so much different than the past duds for the Phillies?
That's a really, really good question. And, all those guys I saw play in the minor leagues, and I watched them hit against AA lineups. I was there at the final game of the season when there was the big battle to see who would win the home run crown between Cousins and Hoskins. They were calling them the Bash Brothers. Alec Bohm, to me, this is me watching him. He's got a certain type of poise that I don't think the other two had. Besides the fact that he's got first-round talent, right? So the other guys never really had first-round talent coming into the Phillies organization. And let's face it, they were coming up at a time period where the Phillies were kind of light. When this rebuild began, I was watching a 30-something-year-old Adam Lowen decide to convert from a hitter to a pitcher at Double-A Reading, right? So they didn't have prospects like this. And Alec Boehm, first-round draft pick, he rises through the system very quickly on merit, not just because they were desperate for a third baseman. Last year he wasn't the starting third baseman. Gene Segura was, and he played himself sort of into the conversation, and he's kind of made a statement that he belongs and he's not going anywhere. But that poise factor, I don't see him as somebody who goes to the plate and ever looks overmatched. I can't say that Rhys Hoskins doesn't look overmatched to me sometimes. Like when you watch Alec Boehm hit, he acts like he belongs and he hits like he belongs, and you don't see him get frazzled by big game situations. So I see something in him that I didn't see in the Kingeries in the minor leagues, that I didn't see in the Hoskins in the minor leagues. And I think he's going to be somebody special. I think Alec Boehm is going to be an all-star this year.
Now let's get to the games tonight through the next couple of days. Obviously, the Mets stand. The Mets did not start this season on time, so they are pushing back pretty much everybody. So you have DeGrom tonight, Strome tomorrow, and Peterson on Wednesday afternoon is that game. What is fair to expect from Matt Moore tonight? Because the guy really hasn't pitched for a couple of years in Major League Baseball.
Last year, here's the one interesting stat about him last year. He played in Japan last year, not in the U.S., and he ended up as a result because they went by a different system there because they had COVID under control a little bit better. He pitched more innings than any major league pitcher did last season. And I think that one of the biggest challenges this year will be how pitchers manage when they're used to pitching 200 innings is sort of like, the magic number for the side of a starter that's really durable. It's going to be really hard for a lot of pitchers to hit that number after last year and not pitching so much. So if one thing that Matt Moore has against other major league pitchers is he has that. And you know what? One thing about Matt Moore, at one point in history, he was ranked the number one prospect in all of baseball. He was ahead of Mike Trout. He was even ahead of the great prospect Dominic Brown. And, kind of burst onto the scene. And he's only 29 years old. So he's got this talent. He's shown that he can be healthy. Maybe he's at the point in his career where he's more mature, learning how to pitch a little bit better. And who knows, maybe the experience in Japan taught him a few things. So watching him this spring, I was incredibly impressed. He seemed like somebody who was of veteran wisdom beyond his years. That's not to say he's going to come have some sort of Cy Young season. I can see Matt Moore having a lot of really good starts. I can see him putting together some starts and people kind of commenting afterwards, wow, what a nice start. And I could see him getting beat up once or twice, So he's here as the fourth starter. There's not the expectations of a number 1, 2, or 3. But, the Phillies finally have a lefty in the rotation. He's somebody who's got a lot of talent and got the experience now. So, I think they're happy with somebody like him to, on a really, really good team, your fourth starter might be able to be a 500 pitcher, right, in terms of wins and losses, So the key is, will he stay healthy through the year? Hopefully his extra experience last year will help him do that. But he's somebody that's going to keep them in games. And like I already said, the offense last year had scored over 5 runs a game. With a guy like Matt Moore on the mound, and if he's consistent, the Phillies can win a lot of his starts.
Yeah, and listen, this team in the past, if they had a guy like Moore who could, let's say Moore finishes the year 13-10 with a 3.88 ERA, I feel like the Phillies would be thrilled because you're getting good production out of the number 4 slot in the rotation. And listen, in Japan last year, I know he had more strikeouts than innings pitched, which is usually a good sign that your stuff is back. So to me, I don't want to get too high hopes for this guy, but I feel like if this guy can be what you said, Frank, somebody who's going to go out there and be a productive pitcher, the Phillies have something solid here.
If he does what you just said, 13-10, 3.88, the Phillies are making the playoffs. I'll tell you that right now. So they got him, they got experience, they got talent, and the same thing with Chase Anderson. He's the number 5 guy. He's facing everybody else's number 5. He's somebody who has had some success in the past. Again, not the dominant starter at the front of your rotation, but you need guys like that that are gonna help you win. I mean, for all the years the Phillies were so good, people love to knock Kyle Kendrick because he was the worst that they had, but he was a good number 5 starter. If these guys can be Joe Blanton and Kyle Kendrick of several years ago, I mean that's a championship team.
Frank Klose joining us live from the ballpark here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Frank Klose on Twitter. Tomorrow his mailbag drops. You want to hit him up with your Phillies mailbag questions at Frank Klose on Twitter. Phillies mailbag at 973ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And, of course, he'll be joining Mike Gill tomorrow as he does each Tuesday on the Sports Bash. Frank, one more before I let you go. Looking ahead to the way the schedule plays out because of what's going on, obviously the travel situation is very tight right now until they get a little bit later into the month. Is there something to be maybe an advantage the Phillies have moving down the stretch? It's just going to be New York, Atlanta, and New York and Atlanta basically for the next couple weeks here. Is there some advantage of familiarity where the Phillies might be able to gain a little bit of ground on these guys?
Well, I'll tell you this. You remember last year the season started, the Marlins went into quarantine, and the next thing you know, the Phillies season was all messed up and they ended up with all these doubleheaders at the end. Well, this year it was the outbreak on the Washington Nationals, 4 players testing positive. Nationals aren't going to play tonight either. They're going to have to play tomorrow, and then all of a sudden Wednesday you have a doubleheader between Atlanta and Washington. Then you got the Mets are going to have to make up those games against Washington and doubleheaders. I'll just say this. It's really nice for the Phillies that somebody else is having these problems this year. That the number of doubleheaders the Phillies had last year was inhumane, and I would not consider it stretch to say that those doubleheaders might have been what kept the Phillies out of the playoffs because, I don't care that there's 7 innings. You can't play all those games in a short span like that and expect to come out with any type of winning record, right? That just beats you up. So the Phillies don't have to do that. I think that's the biggest part right here. Hopefully everybody on the Phillies and the teams that they play stay COVID-free, and I think that will help the Phillies a tremendous amount. So I'm not worried about the division opponents because they're going to have to beat those guys, right? So whether it's the beginning of the year, whether it's the middle of the year or the end of the year, right? So take care of business against your own division. Now's the time you can do that, and if you can do that, then you're going to go to the playoffs.
Well, Frank, I do have one probable matchup coming up, which is a little bit of irony. I don't know if you've probably seen this. Some of the audience probably hasn't. On April 11th, it is Matt Moore versus Drew Smiley, the Phillies' last left-hander versus the Phillies' current left-hander. So there you go, Frank.
We'll see, COVID permitting. So, but Drew Smiley, I would have liked the Phillies to keep him last year. I think he would have helped them a lot. But a nice pitcher. Braves were smart to grab him because he's reliable innings at the back end of their rotation. But the Phillies tried to do the same thing this year.
Well, Frank, enjoy the game for me tonight because I'll be here and you'll be there enjoying the game. Enjoy the fresh air, enjoy the baseball, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the Sports Bash.
What a beautiful night it is for a game. Catch you tomorrow, Josh.
At Frank Klose on Twitter for the Phillies mailbag tomorrow on the Sports Bash. And listen, I'm wearing the Phillies hat. I got the black hat on. I wore it all weekend. Here's where we go. We're hoping for the best here. I'll say the Phillies are going to win. I'm just hoping they don't get totally run over by DeGrom. Maybe this COVID thing threw DeGrom off. Probably not. The guy's the best pitcher in baseball. But still, Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of baseball, I'm so excited that baseball is back. There's nothing like watching a game with great weather, a cold drink, and a little action on FanDuel Sportsbook. If you never bet baseball before, now is the perfect time to give it a shot because FanDuel is giving new users a swing for the fences risk-free offer. You'll get up to $1,000 back if your first bet doesn't win. And once you have an account, you can get up to $25 back each day if your same-game parlay bet falls one leg short. This way, you can combine multiple baseball bets for an even bigger win all season long. These are just some of the reasons why FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, sign up with my promo code Hennig to get in on all the baseball action and get your first bet risk-free. That's right. Use promo code Hennig to get your first bet risk-free with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present NJRPA. First bet on real money only for first risk-free bet. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem? call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we'll get to your thoughts coming up next. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As always, the text board is open at 609-403-0973 to get in on the conversation. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget the national championship game, Gonzaga, Baylor, coming up tonight. 8 o'clock starts the coverage here on 97.3 ESPN and as well on 97.3ESPN.com. Also, in about 10 minutes from now, I'll give you the last Sports Bash keyword of the day. Brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. For all of your lending needs, is Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Sports Bash keywords every day, starting at 9:55 in the morning until 6:55 at night. We got you covered all day long on 97.3 ESPN. So tune in for your chance to one more word. Sports Bash Cash. Take that word, go to 97.3 ESPN.com or the free 97.3 ESPN mobile app for your chance to win Sports Bash Cash. All right. We started the show talking about the NFL draft. Obviously, if you didn't hear, but would let you know again, the trade is Sam Darnold goes to the Carolina Panthers for a 6th-round pick this year and a 2nd and 4th rounder next year, which is less than the Eagles got in return when it comes to Carson Wentz. So we open the show talking about that. We have George who chimed in at 609-403-0973. George says, are the Jets hoping Zach Wilson works out or expecting him to? This Darnold trade is the type you make when you're convinced you found the quarterback to build your team around. George goes on to say over at 609-403-0973, when the return for Darnold is pennies on the dollar, considering what you think of Zach Wilson. So a couple things there, George. First of all, I think you ask a great question. Are you hoping or expecting? I think everybody who drafts a player are both hoping and expecting him to work out. I don't think any team is taking that kind of a gamble at this high in the draft. My personal opinion on Zach Wilson, I think he's got some questions. Injury issues. He's injured both of his shoulders that have forced him to miss games. He is 2-4 against teams ranked in the top 25. And the majority of the time when he's playing for BYU, he's the best player on the field. So you have to wonder, if he's supposed to be the best player on the field and his team isn't playing that well at times, is he really able to elevate the players around him as you might think he can? That Coastal Carolina game is still a demerit in the column for me, for Zach Wilson. So the Jets to me are taking a very serious gamble. But they were also taking a gamble if they kept Sam Darnold, because there was no guarantee that Darnold was ever going to work out in New York, because he needed a change of scenery. I think most people agree and understand that Darnold was going to need a change of scenery. And I think that when it came to the Jets, they had to make this deal. I don't think Sam Darnold was ever going to be successful because of everything that happened with the team in the last couple of years. But with that being said, to get a 6th-round pick for him, that's a bad move. It's a bad move because you can't trade a guy that highly thought of and that talented and that highly touted for nothing. It's just bad, man. I don't understand how anybody can think this is a win for the Jets, except for they found a way to unload a player. That's it. I'm just stunned that Schefter's reporting that they got the compensation to come up. Where did it start? The Eagles got a 3rd-round pick for a quarterback who is way more questions than Sam Darnold has. It's going to cost you more money than Sam Darnold. I don't get it. I mean, does the league really hate Sam Darnold that much, or are the Jets just that bad at negotiating? It's very, very puzzling to me how this deal happens. And listen, I'm not rooting against this young man to play well. I'm not against Zach Wilson. I don't hate him. I don't expect him to be a bad quarterback per se. I just don't like him as much as I like Justin Fields, for example. I don't think he brings as much to the table as Fields does. And I think that the injury issues are to be an element of concern for me moving forward. When I look at Sam Darnold, I see a quarterback who has untapped potential. And I think that that potential is no way worse than Carson Wentz's potential. So if the Eagles got a third-round pick and a potential first-round pick next year, which at worst could be a second-round pick, and then the Jets got a sixth-round pick this year, and then a second and fourth next year, I think Howie Roseman did a better job than Joe Douglas. I do. And I think it's very convenient that so far I haven't seen anybody saying, to us at least here on 97.3 ESPN, that Howie made a worse deal than Douglas. People realize all of a sudden that Howie may not be the best GM in the world. Howie is not the greatest. He's not. But this is a negative against Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas, the football guy. Howie Roseman, not the football guy. The poll right now, just go to 97.3 ESPN. Michael tweeted earlier. We're at 82.5% right now of you saying that Howie Roseman got a better deal from the Colts than Joe Douglas got from the Jets. And there's no guarantee that Howie is going to make the right picks. There's no guarantee that Douglas is going to make the right picks. But the assumption has been that Joe Douglas is supposedly some better football guy than Howie Roseman is. And now all of a sudden, people are saying, oh, well, when you present me with evidence, when you present me with the facts, when you present me with information that's tangible, I can't say no, or I just run away and hide. I see the comments on Twitter. Roseman, not even close. Carson is older and with more injuries. Listen, people are starting to see the truth. The NFL is as much about when and how than it is about who and what. Sometimes you gotta be in a position to take advantage of a situation. And Howie Roseman, now in multiple trades involving quarterbacks, has taken advantage of situations. Back in 2016, he took advantage of the Vikings' desperation and got a first-round pick. He took advantage of the Colts' uncertainty with their future, short and long term, and he got some decent return on investment when it came to the trade. And now you're in a situation where you look at the Jets and you look at the Eagles, and you have to wonder who's in a better position. Again, I'm not promising you that Howie's going to make the right pick. I'm just saying Howie's got the better picks. And you know what? If you're the Eagles and you don't have to waste a pick on a guy like a quarterback, now you can build your team. See, the Eagles are in a position to build their team now. You need cornerback help. You need linebacker help. You need some more depth at wide receiver. You need things. I mean, come on. Maybe even draft an interior offensive lineman late in the draft. You need pieces that are not just a quarterback position. Howie's in a position to do that. Joe Douglas has to go out and get his new quarterback now. So you have to use that second pick on Zach Wilson. And there's no guarantee Zach Wilson is going to work out because I'm not even fully sure if the LaFleur kid is going to be as good as his brother. I get that Mike LaFleur comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree of coaching, and his brother Matt is over there in Green Bay having success. But I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't know about Mike LaFleur. We still got to find out. If he can cultivate Zach Wilson on a similar level that Brian Dable was able to cultivate Josh Allen in Buffalo, it doesn't matter what the Jets got in return for Darnold. Zach Wilson's going to work out. But until that happens, I say you Jet fans better keep your fingers crossed, and you Eagle fans better be glad that your GM is Howie Roseman and not Joe Douglas. All right, wrapping up game night here. We have the Sports Bash Cash word of the day coming up in just a minute here on 97.3 ESPN, the final Sports Bash keyword of the day. Don't forget tonight on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. National Championship game, Gonzaga versus Baylor. I'm going Gonzaga because I picked them in my bracket. Not because my bracket was actually great, but because I'm going to be consistent. By the way, if I don't see our featured bet of the week last week on the bad beats on Scott Van Pelt, I'm out. That was a bad beat. 134.5, and you lose it by over 3. That's a bad beat. That should have been under. There was no reason why they should have been chucking the ball at the end of the game. Man, that's the worst beat I have had in a long time on a pick. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.